everyone, and welcome to today's Firefly Chat. I am Betsy Hawley, and I'm the Executive Director of the Pediatric Palliative Care Coalition, and we are delighted to welcome you here today to Art Therapy in Pediatric Palliative Care, Creative Coping. Before we start, just a few things. Mark your calendars for our upcoming Firefly Chats. Next one is August 13th, and then in November, we'll have full details and information about our topics coming up. And please know that you can always go to our website. All of the Firefly Chats have been recorded and they are available to you to watch at any time without charge. So take a look at the archived chats. And specifically today, we hope you'll also take a look at our Creative Expressions Toolkit. It has some great ideas for activities that can be done at home, either with your patients and families you're taking care of, or for families themselves to access. As always, I highlight our webinar series coming up. This next week is Navigating Difficult Conversations in Pediatric Palliative Care. We're really looking forward to that conversation with two child life specialists, talking about really honing in on some of the tools that are available to help with those conversations. And as always, webinars are free to students and families. So if you fall into that category and would like to register, please just contact us and we'll be happy to make sure that that happens for you. So without further ado, we will move along into our presentation. I would like to introduce our moderator, Dana Dombrowski. Dana is a social worker and the psychosocial program coordinator for the palliative care team at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And she also serves on the PPCC Board of Directors. Dana, I will let you take over.
Thank you so much, Betsy. I'm really excited to be here today, and I have the honor of getting to introduce Katie and JC to you all. Really looking forward to a fruitful discussion. And this goal of these Firefly Chats is to be a discussion. And so we really welcome you to use the chat function very openly and freely to share your questions, to share your thoughts, to share your experiences, and maybe even resources. We will share these all after the recording of the session. So I'd actually like to start as I introduce our two panelists. If you can share in the chat to the audience members, if you can share when you think of art therapy, what are the things that you think about? What are the first words that come to mind? Maybe it's related to an experience you've had or a patient and family that were helped. But what are the first words that come to your mind when you think about the tool of art therapy? So please type those in the chat, and then I will start with introducing JC. JC is a 21-year-old content creator and licensed hair and makeup artist from New Jersey. She's also a 5-organ transplant recipient and cancer survivor. JC was born with a rare condition called MMIHS, which led to severe intestinal failure. She had her first transplant at age 5, but it unfortunately failed. Following this transplant, she found out that she had cancer, lymphoma, and that was her next mission to conquer. After both the first transplant and battling cancer, she struggled to get back to, quote, normal. In 2017, JC was told that she had just 2 weeks to live, and she underwent a second life-saving transplant, receiving a new stomach, liver, pancreas, small intestine, and large intestine. Until that time, she had actually lived without intestines for almost 3 years before that life-saving surgery. Growing up in and out of hospitals, JC found healing through creativity. That passion led her to become an artist and then a licensed cosmetologist and educator, specializing in color treatments. After developing an allergy to hair coloring and discovering that she had endometriosis and chronic ovarian cysts, she had to leave the career she loved. But again, JC overcame obstacles, and now she's back to creating full-time online content, using her story to inspire others, especially young people and those navigating chronic illnesses or hardships on life. You can follow JC on her social media, JC's Makeup 516. And then we have Katie O'Connor. Katie is a board-certified art therapist and licensed professional counselor. Katie received her bachelor's degree from Washington and Jefferson College in Washington, PA. She then earned her master's degree in art therapy and counseling from Seton Hall University and went on to obtain her certified child life specialist certification at the University of Pittsburgh. Katie currently works as a senior art therapist at UPMC Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh within the Creative Arts and Expressive Arts Therapy Department. hold on one. I'm so sorry, I just had some background noise. Hired as a hospital's first art therapist in 2014, she has worked to develop the Art Thearpy program over the years. With over 10 years of experience, she provides programming throughout the hospital's TV studio and Matt's makerspace, facilitates individual, family, and group art therapy sessions, and has supervised graduate and undergraduate interns. In addition to her work at the hospital, in 2018, Katie opened and owns a private practice in the North Hills of Pittsburgh. In her practice, she offers trauma-informed art therapy and professional counseling for young adults, families, and members of the LGBTQIA plus community dealing with life transitions, grief, loss, anxiety, depression, chronic illness, and identity challenges. In both settings, Katie is passionate about helping others navigate mental health challenges to reach their fullest potential. She is deeply committed to raising awareness of the transformative power of art therapy, and she enjoys educating healthcare professionals, families, and communities about the healing impact of creative expression. I am so thrilled that you are both lending your time to us today, and I already know in getting to meet you both prior that we are going to have an extremely fruitful discussion. I'd like to take the next couple of minutes to just ask each of you to share a little bit about your story or the work that you do. And Katie, maybe we can start with you. If you would also give us an overview of what art therapy is and the qualifications to be an art therapist, and then as well as the work that you personally do.
Sure. Thank you so much, Dana, and to the Pediatric Palliative Care Coalition for asking JC and I to be here today. I am very passionate about my work in art therapy, and I'm just so proud of JC and cannot wait to share more with you. A little bit about art therapy for those of you who may not know. To become an art therapist, you have to have a master's degree in art therapy and counseling, or an undergrad degree in art therapy, and then maybe go on to get your master's degree in art therapy. I had an undergraduate degree in studio art and psychology, so it can be a combination of both, but ultimately you will need to study and get your master's degree in art therapy. Following the education process, you will then need to obtain supervision hours of work in the field. I believe it's 1,000 hours of supervised art therapy work in the field, and then you can sit for our board exam to become a board certified art therapist. And then the second part is more state specific. So in Pennsylvania, we're working on getting an art therapy license, and hopefully that will happen very soon. I know states surrounding us, Ohio and New York, have an LCAT, so eventually there may be an art therapy license in Pennsylvania, we're hoping. But right now, you can also get additional supervision hours to obtain a license in counseling, or that LPC. So if you're looking for an art therapist, you might want to search for those credentials, and we can send those out to you. But if you want to work with a board certified art therapist, we can send you some of those resources later. Here at Children's Hospital, art therapy falls into the larger department of child life. And then under that umbrella, we're a smaller department of CIOT, which you might hear me mention CIOT, or maybe JC might say CIOT. So part of that CIOT department is art therapists and music therapists. And we have a CIOT manager, as well as 2 full-time music therapists, 3 full-time art therapists, and a part-time art therapist. We also have recreation therapy that falls under us, and some staff through Dream Big Studios, our closed circuit TV station. So I'll probably be mentioning some of that since I do programming with our closed circuit TV station, as well as work in the makerspace. And then in addition to all of that, we also have students. I know Dana mentioned that too. So that's a little bit of our program in a nutshell. Art therapy can be found again in various settings. So you can find art therapy in private practice settings, at VA hospitals, schools, just an array of different settings. But here at Children's, a lot of our goals are medically driven and medically focused. So we might work in a rehab unit on helping kids learn to stand, or maybe have them walk a few steps to get to the art studio. And so we'll collaborate a lot with occupational therapy and physical therapy here at Children's. In the placement of art materials, we might place something over here so the child has to reach and cross midline. So a lot of our art therapy and music therapy goals here under CIOT do follow those medical goals, and we're very involved with our palliative care team as well as other teams so that we're able to collaborate and make our goals more aligned with the medical setting.
Thank you for all of that. JC, I'd like to turn it over to you to share a little bit about your story, and also how art therapy came into your life in the hospital, and just to say thank you for sharing so many personal aspects of your journey. We're really grateful to you, and I think will be really a good learning experience for those that have joined us here today. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry if my voice keeps going in and out, guys. It's my cough that I have right now, unfortunately, with allergies. But yeah, so I met Katie when I first came to Pittsburgh. Art therapy was super important. I was actually talking about this earlier with some people. I've always been a creative person since I was a little kid. And growing up in the hospital, I think most children in the hospitals are up to kind of be somewhat artsy kids because we have nothing else to do. So I've always been really artsy. It's always been my safe place. It's always made me feel better in some sort of way. And it's absolutely been my biggest therapy, I think, in life. So when things were really bad, when I wind up going from one hospital to another and then wind up going to Pittsburgh, I found my official transplant team. They immediately, did a whole mental check on me, physical check, all that fun stuff. And I met Katie and Corey and a bunch of the other people. And, we made it a priority to make sure that my mental health stayed up with art therapy and the connection that it brought. So that's how I wind up with art therapy, and I wind up staying. It was my favorite part of my days, which I know we'll talk about all that fun stuff. At this time also, this is when I went to Pittsburgh, we found out I was going to need a second transplant. As Dana mentioned earlier, my stories, it is just crazy. I forget half the stuff that happened because trauma. But on top of that, there was a lot going on. So the 5-organ transplant was given 2 weeks left to live. And during this entire experience of knowing I was going to get another transplant, that's when I decided to be a content creator. And I wanted to record it all because we didn't know how much time I had left. I personally felt as a young kid, we didn't have many people to look up to that weren't full-blown adults that were like doctors. There was no normal kids to look to about ostomy bags, central lines, TPN, medicines, pills. No one knew what we were going through. And so I've always just wanted to help people and help other kids. So I just took it in my own hands and I told my parents, I'm going to start recording this all if we're going to go down transplant route again for the second time. And they were like, what? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to record it all. So they were like, all right, let's do it. So we did. We recorded it. We started posting videos. We started reaching thousands of people a month. My health declined very quickly during this whole time. And it's crazy that this is all on document. I literally have it's like shows of just videos constantly of just seeing all the crazy stuff that happens behind the scenes. So when we got into all of that, it did really well. And then I wound up surviving, thankfully, and I had my transplant, and the Pittsburgh team took very good care of me at UPMC Children's. So we kind of just stuck with it, and that's how I kind of started my whole social media presence, and I still do it to this day, which is crazy. We reach around 25,000 people a day I talk to, which is also really fun. And we've reached millions across the world just talking about Donate Life. We talk about transplantation, but I also talk about my art. So I've always said that I wanted to be known for my craft. I am a hair and makeup artist. I somehow fell into that career, and I love this career too. I help people every day feel beautiful. On the weekends, I do brides, I do photo shoots, I do different types of projects. I do all different types of things when it comes down to hair and makeup, which I love. So making someone feel beautiful and being like a little therapist behind the chair is one of my greatest joys in life, and I absolutely love it with my whole heart. I record a lot of that for social media as well to help other people understand the back scenes of cosmetology. So while also spreading the word of Donate Life, and that's what my job is. I actually have a quote that I found. What I tell people is, with my background in hair and makeup and being an educator, my creativity, my authentic oh my God, I can't talk, my authentic self and my resilience in everything I do. My story resonates deeply with my engaged audience, and they've watched me grow up. So seeing how they react to my story and me being an adult now, switching from children's to adult sides and still focusing on art therapy, mental health, and having those things in my life still so prominent, I think it's so cool and it's so important to show other people. So I'm really honored that you guys brought me onto this, and Katie, I'm honored you brought me here too. And then we thought about this because I literally talk about this subject every single day of my life, which is so cool. So yeah.
And I'm so happy you could be here, Jay. This is so great.
Thanks.
And you can already see the relationship that Katie and JC have together that I've gotten to witness in the weeks as we've been preparing for this. Katie, I'm wondering if you would be willing to talk a little bit. JC is obviously a creative person, sort of at the heart of who she is, and then she used it as a tool during her medical journey. What do you say to patients or families that are like, oh, I'm not an artist, I can't do this, I'm not good at it? How can those families still take advantage of art therapy?
Oh, that is a wonderful question. And honestly, one of my favorite challenges that I encounter, and we all encounter as a CIAT team quite often, whether we hear, that I can't draw, or, art isn't for me, I don't like art. Here over the years, when I started, it was me and an art cart in a closet, but we have really grown to expand services, and we have had such great support from the community. And so now we even have an art therapist who's part-time in our maker space, and there's just so much to offer. So it's not even the traditional, like, let's color, let's draw. We have a wood engraver, we have 3D printers, we have so much technology. We're working on getting virtual reality art. So there really is something for everyone. And that's more working, on normalization goals and emotional support. But even through group work, we offer groups for parents here. So maybe if a parent doesn't really want to make art on their own, but they want to come to a group and meet other parents and work on projects, maybe for their baby in the NICU, we have NICU parent support groups. We have one for a cardiac ICU as well. But even when you go to the bedside and you hear from maybe a teen, I don't like to do art, I don't want to do art, maybe we'll just play around with some of the materials and do some scribble drawings. Scribble drawings are one of my favorite art therapy interventions, and it's just as it sounds. You take, a pencil, a pen, whatever you have, and we just scribble. So you do not have to be good at art. If you've ever talked to an art therapist, you probably hear our favorite phrase, it's about the process, not the product. So you don't have to make something that looks nice. A lot of times the most meaningful pieces are those pieces that just express how you're feeling. Because as we all know, words are not enough to describe what we're going through between these walls. And so maybe just being able to scribble or rip paper or throw your pottery piece down that you don't like and watch it splat on the floor, that might be what you need that day. And so really when I introduce our art therapy services, I explain what art therapy is and that you don't have to be good at it and that you can tell me no. In the hospital, kids especially, they are not given the chance to say no. They're told when to eat, what they can't eat, what medicines to take, when they have to be poked. So being able to tell their art therapist, get out, no, I don't want you here, that is totally okay. And I always tell them, I'll come back tomorrow or I'll come back another day. And oftentimes they say, okay, that's fine. And it's, I think, really great to be able to be that service that they can say no to, because that gives them control in an environment where they have no control.
I really appreciate you saying that and actually see the alignment with palliative care, right? That's one of the most important concepts of a palliative care team, right? The presence, but also the ability to give families choice and control of whether a visit today or a discussion today is helpful or not, right? When families are required to see all of the primary teams that are taking day-to-day care of their child, there is choice in a place that there is often not a lot of choice. And that goes a long way. I'm wondering, I'm hearing Katie talk about all the different modalities and now technology that is evolving in the space of art therapy. Were there particular modalities of art therapy that you were sort of more drawn to or used during your tougher time, or did you use the whole array?
So if you guys heard Katie talk about when they were literally in a closet, I was one of the patients that happily went to that closet and sat on the floor in this tiny little space with guitars and instruments on one side of the room, and then the other side was all this art supplies, and I loved it. Like, I was like, this is the best place in this hospital, like, keep me here all day. So now knowing, like, also being older and like wiser and like knowing about childcare and stuff like that, knowing that these kids have just so much more of an array of places to go and a bigger place to just like immerse themselves in all different types of art makes me so happy. I feel like, Katie, like, we've done everything. Like, we have quite literally done a little bit of everything. The one thing I remember I didn't want to do, and like I kept saying no to, that specifically Corey made me try, was playing an instrument. And me and Katie both learned how to play the ukulele. And it was like a group thing. And that's what it's about. It comes down to this like connection where it was, okay, I said no for so long. I finally gave it a shot. Katie jumped in at the same time and was like, you know what? Let me do it with you. And let's do this as a team to make me more comfortable. And I didn't know it at the time because it was happening to me. But now I look back and I'm like, wow, like that was brilliant, because it really did make me feel safer, better, closer to them. And it put me out of my comfort zone. Me learning the ukulele also put me and Katie and Corey on the news. And we wind up singing Fly Eagles Fly during the Super Bowl for 2017. So you literally never know, like, when they bring up these experiences and they bring up these different types of ways to express yourself, you never know, one, where it's going to get you, but number two, you never know what you're going to enjoy. So I know personally, I was just grateful for their time and I was just grateful to have them. Sorry if you guys hear that thing. I'm very grateful for just everything that they've ever shown me, and I loved it all. Like, personally loved it all.
I love that. It's
That was such a great story.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say that was a great story. And I think the first time I probably played ukulele, and as someone on this side of the state, Yin's our Steeler fan, I was like, this is a good song to learn. It was fun. It really challenged me, and we had so much fun doing that. So I'm glad you shared that story.
Yeah.
And I think those of us hearing all of these pieces, like, feel that energy and that excitement. And again, like, the hospital can be a place that is filled with stressors for family. And, finding joy in the hard moments is a really important piece of a patient and a family's journey, right? To find those moments of joy, they're not there all of the time, but how can we help our patients and families to highlight those good moments and to bring smiles, and sort of like hearing you look back onto these stories that bring you smiles, make you laugh. There's a lot of comments. Thank you. We now have the chat function up and running. So thank you for your patience for everybody there. But there's a lot of themes that are coming up in the chat functions, right? And a lot of things that you both have talked about already are as a sacred space, an outlet for children to express their feelings and emotions, right? Some of our children are either too young for words or maybe don't have the ability to use words as part of their language. And art can be a space or an outlet for that. Trusting the process, a distraction, right? A distraction from all of the other things that you're required to do in the hospital. And, one comment that stood out to me was freedom and spiritual health, right? We think about the mind, body, and spirit as we care for our patients and families and how important each one of those is. And some of these experiences not only can be emotional, but can be spiritual. Do you all have thoughts to the connections within the spiritual and emotional realm in addition to our physical bodies?
Absolutely. I do personally. I've always said that. I don't know. Do you want me to talk about that first, Katie?
Yeah, you go right ahead.
So I personally, I'll always say, and I talk about this openly too, I was born and raised in a Catholic household. But when it came down to my medical, there was times where we've also had to use meditation times. I absolutely believe that most of the time when I'm creating some kind of artwork is my meditation. It's my getting my feelings out and replaying, rethinking, reflecting on a lot. And my childhood comes up a lot now in my artwork because of how much reflection I do within that. Now, I absolutely do believe that also with the doctors that, there's angels that guide their hands when they're in surgery. I absolutely believe that. There's no doubt in my mind that everybody that was on the team prayed for me at one point, and they sat with me and actually held my hand and we said prayers because we didn't know what the heck was happening with me, and everyone was kind of stumped at one point. And just that type of energy and that type of healing is such a different level than just coming in, doing rounds and leaving. Do you know what I mean? That is such a different hands-on feeling. And my faith was something that the hospital, my parents, my support team always very much made sure that stayed very, very strong with me. I do believe that what happened was in some form of miracle from God. We had so many people looking out for me and so many prayers going for these organs that I received. And I thank God every single day for even being here, but some aspect, I feel like kids, we kind of go through why me type of idea. And I was just always told because we're stronger than everybody else. And there's a reason why we're meant to do this. And, God wouldn't give us these challenges if he didn't think that we'd be able to take it. So I'm very blessed and able to share my story. And I do think that faith is a super duper important thing for everybody, especially when they're laying in a bed for months at a time in pain. And I don't remember a lot of that pain. And I also believe that God took that away. And the happy moments with Katie, the happy moments with the team, those stayed. But a lot of the painful moments have left. And I think that's just God's way of being it's okay now. You know what I mean? And things are just better overall. So that's my take on it, but I think it's so important.
Thank you for sharing all that, Jay. I was going to say, as a therapist too, I obviously will always let my clients and their patients and their families also lead, whether it's here at Children's or in private practice. I do a lot of grief work as well. And I really do, as an art therapist, I engage in art making myself whenever I'm going through a tough time. And I've just experienced it, I guess, on both ends. But I'm also trained in EMDR, and for Here at Children's, I don't necessarily use those EMDR techniques, but that's eye movement desensitization therapy. And so there are different aspects of EMDR that really tap into that body and spirituality connection, whether it's guided imagery or even having patients create a safe space. And especially whenever there are questions about end of life or grief and bereavement, these are some really great interventions of helping a patient create that space that is safest for them. Maybe that is their idea of a heaven or their future, whatever that might look like. Or, maybe that's their bedroom back at home because they have missed their bedroom for so long. They have maybe been in a hospital for a very long time. And so I think that spirituality, religious, mind, body connect, it's all intertwined and all there. And so I've been asked to pray with patients, and I am personally comfortable. So I will do that if that's what a patient and family would like me to do. Obviously, I let them lead, but I really do think there's a lot of components that the art can help bring that out or help you even reconnect to your spirituality and your faith.
Thank you. I think, the connections are real. And when you're on a medical team, you see how all of those things are related and they affect the day-to-day of a patient's experience. Katie, I'm wondering if you're willing to share a little bit more about the realm of grief and bereavement. And obviously that was not something that JC needed, and she did well with her transplant. But can you share how art therapy is used in that space?
Sure. In the event whenever we know that a patient is declining and they might be redirecting care, our palliative care team will consult us, hopefully like beforehand. We get, like with JC, we got consulted as soon as she arrived here. And so if we have been working with a patient for a long period of time, we will know them and their family pretty well and can kind of tailor our interventions to whatever they need. But then there are some patients that we meet whenever they are taking that turn to maybe redirect care. And so the beautiful thing about art therapy is that we can help the family create a tangible product that they will have for the rest of their lives. And as we have evolved out of that closet that we were once in, and we now have all of these new technology, new materials, we have been able to do really incredible things that before, we were doing a lot of handprint art, which is still very meaningful, and we'd still do handprint art all the time. And what I mean by that is maybe we'll do a family tree and have different members of the family all make handprints and then frame it for the family so that they have these lasting pieces. Now with our wood engraver, we're actually able to engrave heartbeats into a jewelry box, or we collaborate a lot, as JC mentioned, with music therapy. And so our music therapy team offers heartbeat recordings, and I think a lot of hospitals maybe offer them as well, but that's where they have a lavalier microphone that is inserted into a stethoscope. So they're able to record a patient's heartbeat, and then they put that on a CD. And we have these really beautiful wooden CD boxes that patients can then decorate with their art therapist, or we can engrave them for them, maybe with their favorite lyrics or a song that they wrote, or their heartbeat, really whatever they would like. That's kind of what the art making process looks like. There's also, different kinds of cast molds and embossing products that we can use that will make the handprints raised so that you can actually feel your child's handprint. So that's kind of the art end. And then, just supporting them through more of the counseling and the emotional support and whatever we can offer for siblings too, just to be able to explain to them what might be happening to their sister or brother in a developmentally appropriate way.
I think a really important component that it's important to know what's out there and what the possibilities are. I'm wondering, I think as psychosocial professionals, we often talk about the unique needs of our teenagers and young adults, and how sometimes being in a children's hospital setting can be really hard to get that population the supports that they need. Can you talk a little bit about your experience in a pediatric hospital setting, and also if there were specific things that art therapy or other tools offered to support you as a teenager?
Yeah, so I feel like I feel like I'm also know a little bit more about this because I've been in different hospitals. I'm not just a Children's of Pittsburgh client, so to say. I've been in a few, and every hospital honestly was a little different with this, which is really strange. But I want to stick with UPMC just because that's where we're at. One thing that specifically helped me personally was when I found out about Camp Chehopee. So I had a transplant friend from another hospital that's now passed away, but she was a sister to me. And we became very, very close. And it was very hard when I lost her. But 2 weeks before she passed, I went to camp for my first time. And I met all of these kids that were just like me. Now, mind you, I'm a little bit of like an older teenager at this point. So I'm like 16-ish, I think was my first year at Chahopee. And I was like, oh my God, we all understand each other. I mean, you see little kids showing each other their G tubes and their central lines. And I was teaching some of the younger girls how to self-cath. And, stop being stubborn when it comes to your meds. Like, they keep you alive. You need to take them. Like, stop with the little teenage hormones, and we got to grow up a little bit, unfortunately, but we have to do what we need to do for our bodies. And I was able to help a lot of be interactive with these kids since I was a little older. The staff of Chahopee and like our doctors and our teams was like, Jay, you know what you're doing. Here's the kids that are having trouble, and threw me at them and was like, help them, please. And so I was like, all right, I got this. So I had a privilege of working with them for a few years, and I'm still in contact with them to this day, which is really cool. I have never seen a hospital advocate so much for kids and teenagers, specifically teenagers, to find like-minded teenagers within the hospital. I always say that growing up, I absolutely will say it was lonely. I didn't know it at the time, but it was. And I suffered really bad with trying to be normal when I knew I wasn't. And so, and I say quote unquote normal because who's really normal? Let's be for real. But I was always a social butterfly. I never had trouble making friends, but I had trouble being my authentic self, underline, like knowing that I'm not like them, if that makes sense. So when it comes down to like being in the hospital, I think the best way for like the nurses, the doctors, other caregivers to really help these kids is going, there is people like you, let's get connected. And them putting in the extra foot to get them connected with other people that are like them, because I know doctors that would never even care or even think about it or never even give it a second thought. And then I know doctors that would be like, Jay's on speed dial, let's get her connected with this kid. It helped me out a lot, finding friends within the hospital, and also knowing that I was able to help the younger ones too. And even as a teenager, that felt really nice to me personally, being able to give back and like helping the other kids. Yeah.
I'm so glad you highlighted Camp Chahopee. Camp Chahopee stands for Children's Hospital. That's just a shortened version, Chahopee. And so it's been amazing to go to Camp Chahopee. As an art therapist, we've had members of our art therapy and music therapy team that also go to camp. And it is so wonderful to just see all of our transplant kids being kids, swimming in pools, jumping on, I can't think of the word, but the lake, what is that, whatever you guys jump on. Like, yes.
The rope, yeah.
It's one of my favorite things that happens every August. And so I'm just so happy that you highlighted that, because a lot of our campers do grow up to be CITs or counselors in training, and then actual counselors themselves, just like you. And it's incredible. And, in the evenings, we have lanterns that we light to honor the campers that are no longer with us. And I know, Jay, I'm glad that you spoke about that, because that is a loss too. And, just to now not have your friends maybe there that you had at camp. And so I think that Camp Chahopee is just such a bonding experience, not just for our campers, but also for our staff. And I look forward to going as many years as I can.
I would like to add in one more thing, Dana, with that, if I can.
Please.
Just because I'm thinking about it and I find it important, and I'm going to try not to cry because this makes me emotional. It's the only thing that makes me cry when I talk about transplant is the survivor's remorse, but also your friends. So being a teenager and going through all this and making friends within Pittsburgh and stuff like that, I've lost 2 very, very close ones, and I've lost about 10 people from camp specifically that I was interacting with, and I know what the light within them shows, and I've talked to their families and their siblings and things like that. Losing a transplant friend is like a punch in the gut like no one else can even imagine. It's a type of loss that no one can understand, because there's so many limited people that understand us and like the thought process. People always say, we're sending prayers, we're thinking about you. Oh, like I can't even imagine. Well, guess what? You really can't imagine, because we go through the craziest of things, and it's, to be completely blunt, you're never going to understand because you're not living this life. Like, you get to go home to your family at the end of the night where there's so many kids suffering and they don't even know where their parents are at or when they're going to see their sibling next. So it's like this idea that like we lose a part of us, and it really is like damaging. And at camp, when we get to light, the lanterns for the people that passed, like the energy and the spirituality that comes down back into it, we all have an understanding that no one else could ever in this world understand. And it's one of the most beautiful things. And Katie sees it, the staff sees it, they see this bond that we all have, and it's incredible and it's beautiful. And I'll always advocate for any transplant person in the world to find a community like Donate Life, UNOS, and get involved in the organizations, because when you can find the donor families, the recipients, the people that passed, it lights something in you that you didn't even know you had. And it gives you like another purpose to stay alive and to keep fighting and to keep doing better for yourself and for the ones that have passed, and to spread awareness. And that's why I feel like I push so hard to spread the word of Donate Life, is not even just for me and my story, but for my friends that have passed and they can't say the words anymore that we wish we could have said.
So
And
much for all of that.
there was one thing too, Jay, you just made me think of something that I forgot to mention when I was speaking about grief work. You know, as an art therapist too, it's really difficult to go through some of these experiences. Like, we're people, we care so much about our patients, and so does all of the staff. So some of our grief work too does involve supporting patients whenever they're going through the loss of a friend, or even staff. We've done different debriefings with certain units or nursing teams, or have even created artwork. I just remember one time we created a piece that all of the nurses were able to sign, and we mailed to a family. So I think you bring up such a great point of, we miss them, we grow to love them, and the time that we spent with them was so important. And so we sometimes will try as Art Thearpy to offer support to staff when we can. And I think that's really special too, and really important.
I think showing that art therapy sort of is well beyond the bound of one patient room or one experience. It really covers so many areas. And I heard two things that are sort of conflicting, is not the exact right word, but how important it is for human connection and shared experience or similar experience. And then also the risks that come with that, of forming these amazing relationships and then having to deal with the death of your friends and processing all of the emotions and feelings that come with that, given that you've had similar experiences and you need that connection, but then it also brings a whole nother layer of emotion for sure. There's a question in the chat that I think is really important to talk about. Do you have any advice for integrating elements of art therapy in settings that do not have a licensed art therapist or designated spaces for creating art? I think that's really important to talk about. Those of us that come from larger hospitals, in particular large pediatric hospitals, we have a lot of resources to put these tools and spaces in place, but there's a lot of settings, and also the home setting for children and caregivers there, that don't have the licensed professional or maybe the whole stock of supplies and technology. What are some suggestions, Katie, that you might offer in those types of settings to support children?
This is a really great question, because like you said, Dana, not everybody is, privileged enough to have art therapy maybe on staff or art therapy available to them. And like I mentioned before, if you are looking to have art therapy with an outpatient art therapist, you can find that, but not everybody might have those resources or insurance that would cover that. And so as an art therapist too, we talk a lot about art as therapy and art as psychotherapy. The psychotherapy part is more of that counseling, and whenever we're working one-on-one with a patient. But, coloring, as simple as that is, coloring books are really wonderful, because that gives you a task and a sense of accomplishment. During my internship years ago, I worked on a memory support unit in a nursing home here in the Pittsburgh area, and I helped support this memory support group. And just watching the patients color and share crayons, and again, those goals on community, or making a picture for your nurse, or making a picture for somebody, or a card. I think card making is beautiful, coloring. A lot of people are really into diamond painting and diamond art. And while these might not be art therapy, despite if you see an art therapy coloring book in Target, which I have seen, while that might not be true art therapy, that is art is therapy. It's therapeutic in itself to create something for somebody else, or to color, or like just something to squeeze. So like whether it's even just modeling clay or model magic, something simple that you could squeeze instead of a stress ball and make it into something. And then when you look at it, you kind of remember what you created. I also think that just, reaching out to other art therapists that might be in your area that may be able to come in and do some pro bono work could be something that you could look into at your setting. I know that some art therapists do that. Outpatient art therapists might be willing to come in, or even provide a workshop for staff as well. So that's another idea that you could try.
Thank you for that. I think, the things that we can do now with technology and all of these creative modalities are awesome. And awesome. Also, you just having some basic tools and supplies can be that space for expression. I go back to, the importance of choice and control, right? And giving a child choice about what type of modality they use, crayons or markers or pencils, and what color to choose, right? We can't underestimate the importance of even the littlest, what might be a little choice to us, but giving them that safe space to create and express.
Exactly. And even just whether you have like colored pencils and watercolors and crayons, just a few materials on hand, and you'll learn by working with your clients which might frustrate or help them. Like some people really don't like watercolors because they're hard to control. Some people love that because they can't make arts. They just want to make an abstract, watercolor painting. But I've seen, firsthand somebody just sitting down and coloring, how that really helps them like become distracted and they're not thinking about their pain as much. Maybe then they don't need as much pain medication that day. So just giving them something to do or a task to complete, even if it's something as simple as, like diamond art or making a card for somebody else, it can really brighten somebody's day.
Thank you for that. Going back when we were preparing for this discussion, JC, there was something that you said that I was hoping maybe you can just share with the audience. But when you were talking about after your transplant and the organs that were making you so sick were taken out, and you had the opportunity to actually see them, but you shared something with us that you said something like, well, no wonder I was so full, right? And getting to observe what made you so sick and heavy feeling. And now I'm full of life. And I think we're getting a small glimpse of that today, and all of the things that you're bringing with us and you're sharing with other people. It is evident you are full of life and you're sharing that with the world. But can you talk about that transition of being so sick to really getting to experience life in the way that maybe you wanted, you hoped for, you had been waiting for?
Absolutely. So I think that this is like one of those things where a lot of it gets fuzzy for me, because I swear that like there's so many memories that I just like don't even remember because of how much pain I was in. But I can say I remember being in so much pain that I didn't want to necessarily be here anymore. And I feel like I can say that because we're talking about raw like subjects here. And I feel like that's, comes down to a point in a teenager's head when you're in pain 24/7. You don't feel like dealing with it anymore. Like you want to give up. And that is something that my parents never let me. But I'll never forget, there was a night that my mom was home, my dad was there. My parents are separated, but during this time, they wind up just being with me a lot, obviously. And I told them, I don't want to fight anymore. Like, I'm tired of this. And they cried and they were like, you can't say that. Don't say that. And I was like, no, like, I'm tired of this. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I'll never forget this realization in my head where I was just like, just let it go and it's in God's hands. And that's where it's just going to be. Like, I'm not sitting here keeping myself awake. I'm not going to sit here and put in all this energy when I can't even walk without at the time, it was a fentanyl patch, which should just tell everybody everything. I was a walking zombie with barely any blood. My blood levels were under 8. And if I was a 7, which they should be at like 11, I was at a 7, and that was a good day for me to be my blood levels be at a 7. And I just remember being tired, like so tired. When I would close my eyes, I would just pray and I'd be like, just let me go to sleep. Let me go to sleep. And no one knew if I was going to wake up. My parents would stay up throughout the night, making sure I was breathing while I was sleeping. I didn't know these things. They told me after. I journaled during this time, recorded videos and all of that. I just didn't think I was going to be here. And then when we got the papers saying, what were my last wishes, I forget there's like a certain saying for that. There's like a certain name for those papers.
5 wishes.
Advanced directives. The advanced directives. When we did my advanced directives, me and my family, it was on Thanksgiving, we did my advanced directives. And we talked about my wishes and all the things. And I sat at my grandpa's lap, and I was with my grandparents, who I'm very close with. They also are close with Katie and everybody. But I just remember those times of it being really bad. And I couldn't deal with it. So when you feel like there's nothing going for you and you feel like everything's about to end, truly, even down to the wire of not talking to my friends as much and trying to separate with them because they couldn't understand, oh, we just talked to Jay. We were playing video games. She was fine. I had to start separating myself from school and everybody because I didn't want people to be like, oh my God, like what happened? So it was like those little things that you just start doing when you know where you think you're going to go that are really damaging to a teenager. I mean, I was a young teen. Like, that's crazy to be thinking of those types of adult thoughts. It was really hard. So after transplant and realizing that I was coming out of a coma and being like, oh my God, my senses are coming back, and just being like, wait, I'm alive. Like genuinely being like, it worked. Like it's happening now. Like, okay, I have to stand up and like I have to walk and I have to get things going. We have a long road ahead of us from right now. It is the most awakening feeling that anyone could honestly probably ever imagine. And it's called a gift of life for a reason, you know? So when I finally was in recovery, which I also had a very, very hard recovery after my second transplant, I wind up actually healing really well. And then I was on thymoglobulin, because we had a slight sign of rejection within the first 3 months. So I had to go on thymo to kind of cut that. Well, what that thymo did was it actually destroyed all of my new cells from the stitches and all the staples. Katie, I don't know if you remember this. I had a wound vac, and I'll never forget this dang wound vac because that sucker hurt. But it also worked. And everyone in clinic, once we finally realized I was done with the wound vac, they were like, we didn't think it was going to work. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? So those types of like moments of being like, oh my God, it worked. It's here. Like, this is happening. Like, my life is starting again and I'm going to be okay. It just kind of fueled me every day to get up and walk. It got me to want to eat. It got me to want to learn how to, oh, wait, I need to eat breakfast in the morning to feel energy throughout the day. I mean, I was 16 years old. For like, I didn't know that I had to actually eat food as energy because I've been on TPN for however long. So realizing that also the first time I ever ate a cheeseburger, oh my God, I'll never forget, I could taste the actual iron where I was like, wait a minute, my iron's low. I need a burger. And being able to be so hyper focused on those little parts of my body that were like craving certain things, or I needed more hydration. It was like a superhero moment. It was like, how am I so in tune with my body? But it was because my body was practically done. Like, it was done for it. So being able to have that light within you again, and I think that's what that is those senses and that light that comes back with like within you, feeling that I wanted to just tell everybody. And that's what I think still fuels me to this day, is wanting to tell everybody, like, listen, I have days where I'm down bad, but at least I can drive my car. At least I can cook myself a meal. I can eat. Like, I can absorb food. That's crazy. That I can actually absorb food and it work and give me nutrition. That transition of feeling that was just like, it's incredible. It really is, but it's scary and it's very hard. And that's where that therapy came back in again in my life, was realizing you have to do these things, Jay. You have to keep up. The pressure's on, but you're going to make it work. So I think that's where that kind of sits.
And that sort of raw emotion and raw experience, that was the reality of everything that you were going through, right? You have such a positive mindset now, and it doesn't take away how hard everything that you have been through really was. And I just appreciate you being really honest about that. Yeah. There's one question in the chat that I want to get to, but also just thinking about, you mentioned your parents, and I had the opportunity to get to meet your mom in one of our earlier calls, but can you talk about whether there was any space for you and Katie to do activities or art with your parents?
Oh, absolutely. My mom, oh my God, I wish my mom was able to be here today, but she's working. So my mom is one of my best friends. And I mean, not for nothing, but I was attached to her hip. She never let me, be by myself one night in the hospital. My mom said to me and Katie too, and like she's talked about this with you guys, that when it came down to me getting any type of therapy, this and that, it always came down to my decision if I wanted her in the room or not. I was very lucky to have parents that advocated so hard for me, specifically my mom, fighting tooth and nail for me with a lot of things. But also, my mom told me from a very young age, it's ultimately your decision and no one's going to lie to you. Everything's going to be so straight up. So as long as you're honest and you're straight with us, everyone's going to be straight with you. And she made sure the doctors weren't using big words to beat around the bush or doing this, doing that. She made sure it was honest and it was raw. And guess what, Jay? It's going to hurt, but we're going to get through it. And that's the end of the story. So when it came down to my therapy times, I wanted my mom there a lot of the time. And Katie, Corey, the whole team, I mean, we would have a speaker on in my room. We would be bumping like it was a club, like literally in my hospital room. We would be dancing, singing. Sometimes me and Katie would be doing something. My mom and Corey would be talking about something else. A lot of the times too, it was, oh my God, can you guys sit here with Jay for a little bit? I'm going to go get a cup of coffee. or I need to go call my parents. I need to go call my best friend. And knowing that they were with me, she felt so safe that I was being taken care of by trustworthy people and people that I genuinely loved. Specifically with me too, I know we're talking about, Katie said, like, sometimes the kids don't want to be in a different type of head state because of meds or whatever. Personally, with somebody, I remember never wanting to take pain meds before Katie came to my room. I wanted to be present. I wanted to be there. I wanted to remember our session. I didn't want to feel nothing. I wanted to feel my emotions and feel pain because I could tell Katie in a safe way and I knew she could help me through it. So a way I didn't have to medicate myself, but I was able to find healthy coping mechanisms that I still actually use to this day in my life that I'm so grateful for, which is crazy because now I'm going to be 22 in 2 days and I still use these coping mechanisms. So I think it's really cool. My mom, though, she's always said she's been so grateful for every single conversation that her and Katie have, the other therapist. I mean, it helped her in so many ways. It helped my grandparents when they were even there and they would sit and talk to them and ask about me and stuff like that. And they were open and honest with them. And that was how our dynamic worked with the whole team. So I know all of us were so grateful for all of it and all the time spent.
Jay, you answered that beautifully because you're exactly right. And this happens a lot with other parents. Like sometimes parents just need a break. And so we might not be actually having a session with them, but they can go grab a coffee or they can make a phone call. I think that is so important. And just, we work really hard here as a whole CIAT team. And like you said, delegating, maybe one day Corey was with your mom and I was with you. We try to do that a lot so that we're providing support, not just to our patients, but to the whole family as well. And I wanted to reiterate, because I know, Dana, you're doing an awesome job at telling us all questions in the chat. Some people might not have been here in the very beginning. So I just wanted to say, yes, to actually receive art therapy, you must have a board certified art therapist. So if you are interested in that, Dana, and I believe you guys offered to send out some slides that I made, so I can put some information in that for if you're looking for an actual art therapy session. So while you might find that art therapy book in Target, again, that's not art therapy, but it could be therapeutic for you just to color and get out of that stressful headspace. I did see something too about scented crayons and pens. I have a love-hate relationship with scented crayons and pens personally, along with glitter, but really it's up to your patients. One thing I will say, be mindful of their treatment, because sometimes scented materials can make kids feel sicker and you obviously don't want to do that. So I think it's really dependent on your client or your patient, what materials you're using regardless.
Thank you for Katie for all of that. You're paying attention to the chat too. We do just have a couple of minutes, and I guess I'd like to offer to either of you, if there's, knowing that we have many medical providers on this call, hopefully some parents, caregivers as well, are there any messages that you would like to leave them either about your experience or what's helpful?
I mean, I would say, I think the biggest thing that I'm navigating now in the adult hospital world, which is insane compared to children's side, I'm learning this, is I think the biggest thing that helped me as a child as well is to listen. Like, they're not just kids. They are like little human beings, and they are just as confused as adults, if not obviously more. And I think a lot of the times I personally feel like newer doctors, it's almost this idea of you're going to listen to me instead of I'm listening to you. And I don't have time for that. I was not raised to tolerate that, have that type of attitude, but I know a lot of kids aren't raised that way either. So I don't know. I know other kids that don't have, say, a voice to feel like they can speak up against them. But I think the biggest thing is to remember to listen fully to the kid. And real quick, I just want to say Dr. Mazarregos is the head of Transplant. And I'll never forget when I first went to Pittsburgh. It was the first night I was ever there. I was in rejection already for 9 months. And I haven't left the hospital bed for 9 months. And when I got transferred to Pittsburgh, my eyes opened to a whole new world. And Dr. Mazarregos came in my room. It was late. It was after hours. And this man stayed to make sure he met me that night and to get to know me, because he knew he was going to be my new transplant team. And he said to me, "What do you want?" And I said, "I don't know, but I'm in pain." And he said, "Do you want to go home?" And I said, "I can't." And he was like, "You need your bed." "Yes, you do." Like, we can manage your pain and you need to go home. That's what you need. Like, you have been sitting here and suffering. All you need is to go home to your family and relax in a non-medical space. And that's exactly what I did. And it helped tremendously. And I don't think I've ever heard I've never heard it again, a doctor ever put that type of perspective to a child. And that just meant the world to me. And ever since then, I've always said, just listen to the patients and listen to what's going on. Yeah.
I think you summed that up beautifully, Jay, and I'm so happy that you were able to be here and that we were able to share about, your journey and just the power of art therapy and music therapy. I think that here I'm very fortunate that UPMC Children's Hospital is so supportive of the creative arts therapies. We wouldn't have this program or this beautiful new space if it wasn't for the generosity of local donors. We are very heavily supported from the community. And so I just love the opportunity to share about our work here because it is so powerful, and just I feel that it is really important to note that we are so grateful for everybody who continues to support us. And Jay, I think that it's just been wonderful that you were able to be here and speak about your story. And I think that if anybody has any other questions, feel free. You can always reach out.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Thank you to both of you. This has been an amazing session, and I think we learned so much about just the connection and the importance of creativity and having some control and finding your voice, even if it's without words. And I'm just so grateful that you gave your afternoon and all of the planning time to share with everybody. Thank you to those of you that joined us in the audience. This will be available to view again, and we wish you all a good day. Thank you so much.